Hey everyone, and welcome back to Grayson's Bookmark. Today I am ranking all the books I've read this year. This is not my video idea. I saw it on a channel called The Book Cleo on BookTube, and I will link the original one in the description below so you can watch it. I've read about 30 books this year, and I'd like to come at you with some statistics. Of the 30 books I've read 6 fantasy books and 6 romance books. Although fantasy and romance are debatable categories for me, there's crossover. I read 7 books I would classify as literature. These are books that weren't really focused on a romance or like a fantasy aspect, but were more about things like mental illness or just like plot-based. That's how that works. 2 classics, 3 nonfiction books, which really surprises me because I do not choose to read nonfiction. I like to read more nonfiction for the rest of the year, but honestly, fiction is just what I need right now. 2 sci-fi books, 2 juvenile fiction, 1 graphic novel, and 1 thriller. And like in the Book Leo's video, I created a ranking system with 6 categories for 30 books. They are not for me, didn't quite hit, a good time, would recommend, like yeah, I'd recommend this, oh my god, read this, and finally, no seriously, read this. And I thought this video would be a good format to not only make a tier system, but also like talk to you about my mid-year favorites so far. I just wanted a little spice, little flavor. Yeah, so let's jump right into it. First up in the not for me category, these are the books I didn't like. First and in dead last is Scar Island. I read this book purely for the lighthouse on the cover because the project I'm working on has a lighthouse. Ooh, a book with a lighthouse. Perfect for me. But how wrong I was. It reminded me of Lord of the Flies, and I didn't like that. There was just a lot of groupthink and peer pressure. This book is juvenile fiction, and it's about these boys who were sent to like a prison island called Scar Island. The adults, all of them, just like die in a lightning strike in the rain, and then the boys are left to defend themselves. Just not my favorite. Not the right vibe for me. Number 29 is Hyperion. This book is sci-fi, and I barely remember any of it. It's like all gone for me. There was no payoff to it, and it kind of makes me angry. It's like so not worth it to pick up the next book just to find out what happened at the end of the first one. The book is told from 6 different like perspectives, I guess, but overall this book was a letdown. If you're gonna read a sci-fi, I would recommend Dune instead. Number 28 is The Dead Fathers Club. Ooh, a Shakespeare retelling. That seems new and fun and interesting. It was not. Our main character, I don't even remember his name, but his father's a ghost who comes back to tell him that like, hey, your Uncle Terry kind of like killed me, so like, can you kill him? The main character is like an 11-year-old boy, and like his tone is weird, like, and there's like adult content and like cursing in the book, and it felt weird to be filtered through his eyes. Like, I just didn't find it very interesting. There's like a fire at one point, which seemed really random. Not for me. Okay. Now we're in the didn't quite hit category, and this is more like I didn't actively dislike them, but they didn't have what I was looking for when I read them. Just didn't quite hit. It's pretty self-explanatory. At number 27, I have the graphic novel Heartstopper. It was the only graphic novel I read this year, and this one didn't hit for me because I didn't know it was a graphic novel when I checked it out, and I finished it in like 2 hours. Oh well. I remember it being gay between 2 boys. There's a high school plot and a party. I like the pink and green aesthetic. At number 26, some of y'all are gonna hate me for this, and it's The Night Circus. This book was the top of the video that inspired this one. I feel sad to say it, but I was just lost. It's very pretty to read, but like the plot was just tangled. Suddenly romance that I wasn't expecting. The premise is that there's a circus that just appears places. There's 2 like competing magic guys. I don't even remember, y'all. I read this a while ago. Celia and Marco. They're competing. We feel like they're in this magic competition. Like, we don't know what happens at the end of it, but you feel like one of them's gonna die. Suddenly there's romance between them, and I was all confused, and it was just, yeah, pretty to read. Hard for me to follow. Didn't quite hit. Number 25 is The Midnight Library. This book did not live up to the hype for me. It's very optimistic. Like, it was fine to read. I was entertained. It's about this woman who chooses to kill herself. She wakes up in the Midnight Library and gets another like chance to to view all the lives she could have had. The book's a lot about regret and like how we should absolve ourselves of regret. Like it explores the possibilities and like the regrets and like why we should live. It was an obvious message from the beginning. I can understand why it would be a book club book because it is one to inspire a conversation, but I don't know if it's like actually like a good book. It ends optimistically. It's fine. And that's all I have to say about that one. Number 24 is Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. It is the first book on this list that I have physically. Here it is. And I clearly had lots of notes about it. Here's the thing. I liked the setup and I liked the small part in the middle of the book called Time Passes. If you like stream of consciousness writing, if you like literary fiction that kind of doesn't go anywhere, it's definitely not my favorite Virginia Woolf book. That is still Miss Dalloway up there. I'm gonna say I was a little disappointed in it and it made me sad, and that's why it's in this category. It does get credit for inspiring my current writing project called Seaside, so it's not all bad. Number 23 is Ready Player 2. Do I have thoughts about this book? If you've read the first book, you'll know that like the writing isn't super great, but you read it for the plot. Like you read it to find out what's gonna happen. And also like the 80s references are entertaining enough to keep you occupied through the end. But the second one, the problem with the second one is that all the good references were taken up by the first book. So I literally got like 1 out of every 5 things he mentioned. The first book, it's like a hunt for an Easter egg, and the second book, shocker, is another hunt. Like it's the same type of book. And yeah, just the references I didn't really get. It mentioned Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I've seen, and Prince was a pretty big situation in the book. Just, you know, it didn't quite hit. And his writing style didn't get any better in the second one. I wonder if Ernest Cline was stuck in like a 2-book contract and like had to write the second one. And I hope it wasn't just like a money grab, but at least from the ending, I know there will not be a third one. And number 22 is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, and it hurts me saying this that it didn't quite hit. I really just think I was too old for this book when I read it. It is definitely a middle grade. It's about this girl named Cassidy, and she has a ghost best friend whose name I think is Jake. She and her family go to Scotland to help shoot like a ghost documentary. It's got that vibe of a book I would like. I think Cassidy's 14 and just the voice is a little young for me, so I wasn't fully into it. I will be looking for another Victoria Schwab series to start, so if you have a recommendation, please leave it in the comments below. After The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which we'll get to later in the video, I would certainly like to find another Victoria Schwab book that I like. And that is it for the Didn't Quite Hit. Next one, A Good Time. These are books that, like, you know, I was entertained, pleasant to read. I have a lot of rereads in this category, books that were perfectly good. But maybe they were missing like the special like spark of something that like really drew me to them. You know, these are the books I liked. And I feel like there's this tendency to be like, oh, I loved this book or I hated this book. Push everything to extremes, but in reality, what you read is gonna be like a bell curve. There are things that you're gonna really love, things you're gonna really hate, but the majority is gonna fall in the middle. You don't have to love every book that you like, and I stand by that. So I'm trying to hold firm in the middle ground right now with this category. A Good Time. Number 21 is Between the World and Me by, I should look this up, by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Forgive me if I've said that wrong. It was very educational. It's about critical race theory in the United States. It's about 3 hours long. I read most everything in audiobook. They suit my lifestyle really well, and this one was really easy. I think it's important to expose yourself to the systems that you participate in, perhaps unknowingly. I'm talking about white privilege and like the patriarchy and police brutality, and just a lot of heavy stuff is addressed in this book. And if that is emotionally expensive for you, it might not be the right time to read a book like this. We all have a responsibility to not remain ignorant of the value systems that we unknowingly participate in. Between the World and Me is also kind of like a memoir, and I think I put it in the nonfiction category, so oops. Number 20 is Why Fish Don't Exist, also nonfiction. The subtitle is A Story of Lost Love in the Hidden Order of Life, and it's a story about the author following the life of David Starr Jordan, who is a fish taxonomist, and she answers questions about her own life. Like, she is lost in her life, and she uses the life of David Starr Jordan as a reflection. The book ends in hope. It's about 5 hours, and I really would recommend it. Like, the reason I don't read nonfiction is because I'm like, oh, it's education, it's teaching me things. I just automatically assume that it's going to be boring, and this book wasn't boring. I think the personal aspect of it made it easy to read. It was a good time. Moving on, and number 19 is A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, if you are a Sarah J. Maas fan, you know why I read this book, and I'm going to say that after the 3rd chapter, it takes 50 more chapters for a certain situation to happen again. A really long time. This book could be like 3 whole books. It's fine. I liked the general vibe of the book. I didn't like a specific, how can I say this? Of the situation that the 2 main characters feel for each other. Is it fantasy? Is it romance? It kind of bridges the gap. I probably put it in fantasy. If you have 22 hours, be my guest. It was a good time. I was perfectly entertained, but I wouldn't be reading it again. It was just really long. Although really tricky at the ending. I was not expecting the twist. Now I have to read the 3rd one. I might slot it further up into my TBR, which is very, very long. But moving on, number 18 is All the Bright Places, and this was a reread for me. It's a cute romance between, well, there are a lot of things that are not cute in this book. It's between Violet and Finch, and they both are up on the bell tower, like contemplating suicide at the beginning of the book, although Finch may not actually be suicidal. I think he ends up saving Violet from the school tower. They like have to do a school project together, and like they go to lots of places in Indiana. It's a very scenic book. It's a little nostalgic for me because I read this in high school and it was on the Battle of the Books reading list, which is like a high school book competition. Yeah. I liked it. Number 17 is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And everybody says this is a really powerful book, and I have to agree. And the book is about this girl Star, and what happens in the beginning is she and her friend Khalil are going home from a party. Khalil gets shot by the police, and the plot revolves around whether Star is going to come forward as the other person in the car, if she's going to testify against the white police officer. It's very like compelling, like I wanted to keep reading. It's also very like gritty. There are parts of it that are really heavy. I was angry like right along with Star at some of the like racial injustices and like microaggressions that she faced, and it's a really empathetic book. I think you should read it. Maybe I should have put it in the would recommend category, but you know, bell curve, remember? There's lots of books that I like. Number 16 is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. It's a classic YA fantasy. If you like princesses with powers, this is the book for you. It was a reread for me, and it was pretty good. 15 is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. It's a very, very nostalgic book for me. I also read it in high school. It's split between 2 perspectives and 2 like points in time from Noah and Jude. Jude is in the future when the twins are 16, and Noah is when the twins are 13. You're trying to piece together the timeline, and there's lots of surprises in it that I still enjoy reading the second time. It's very imaginative, sometimes to the point of magical realism, and I liked it. Moving on to the would recommend category, I have 8 books in this category, and they were all ones that I would 10 out of 10 recommend. Compelling story, good voice, good plot, special things about them that drew me to them, and let's get into that. Number 14 is Juliet Takes a Breath. I mentioned this book in an article that I wrote recently called Your Next YA Sapphic Read, and I would recommend it, although if you are sensitive to strong language, the language in it is stronger than most YA books, although, you know, I'm an adult. I found it fine. This book does, like, with plot, things that I don't see very often, and it's... characters will jump in and out of the story like normal people have normal lives. There's this one character that's in here for like 7% of the book, and it's just like, bye. And like, he goes off to better himself, and like we don't see him for the rest of the plot. Like that whole part of the book is over and it's really, like, it feels real. Like, it feels like it's complicated and it's messy, and it's set in 2003, and I think it is able to comment well on the issues of today, like white feminism and the savior complex. Juliet is our main character, and she comes into her identity as being gay, and she moves from the Bronx to Portland to have a summer internship with her favorite feminist writer, who turns out to be messy and complicated. The book does a good job of showing like what it's like to get like a PC education, learning about pronouns and like different labels people call themselves and gender, and like a crash course kind of. And I really would recommend it. It wasn't very long either, so I blazed through it. There were so many parts of it I highlighted and I was like, ooh, good prose. And also like the book, like, why was it able to describe the sky so well? Like it's not even about the sky. Oh, and like the love interest, like she drives a motorcycle and she's like super badass, and like she's cool. She's a cool person. So yes, would recommend. Number 13 is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is the only novel, to my knowledge, that Sylvia Plath wrote before she committed suicide. For some reason, I had never read this because I thought it was The Secret Life of Bees, which has like a jar on the cover. And I was like, ugh, I don't like The Bell Jar. But it was I had actually never read The Bell Jar. I really liked it. It was written, I believe, in the 1960s, and it's about this girl who wants to be a journalist or a fashion writer in New York, gets put in a psych ward, and she has electroshock therapy, and it goes off the rails, and oh my god. Just the little, like the smallest metaphors or similes everywhere, like the figurative language was just top notch. She describes words from our main character Esther's mouth as falling dumbly onto the table like so many wooden nickels, and I was just like, ooh. Like, you can hear it, right? And I'm just like, There were lots of lines like that. I was just like, oh my god. Like, it was really satisfying to me. I wasn't so much of a fan of the psych ward part of it, but it's just the language. The prose really did it for me. Number 12 is 6 Angry Girls. I mentioned this, and oh my god, the first video I ever made. It's kind of cringy. I didn't know that when you make a video, you shouldn't sound like you're reading from your computer, even though you are. I was still learning about how to make transitions and how to like talk naturally. This is my 5th month of YouTube, so I feel like my videos have gotten better. But yes, 6 Angry Girls is about 6 girls who form their own rival mock trial team against their school's original team for like some pretty credible reasons, but you'll have to read the book to find out. It's really interesting how the 6 girls come together to form this team. I didn't know anything about mock trial, and I feel like it exposed me to a new high school experience that I never had. There's lots of LGBTQ plus rep in this book, but it's not the main focus. So if you're looking for like positive portrayals of that without it being about that, this is a book for you. Would recommend. It made me feel happy. Sometimes it's good to like just sink into a happy ending. Yes, that's what this book did for me. Number 11 is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth, not Acevedo, because I always want to say it backwards. This book is very lyrical. It's told from 2 perspectives, Camino and Yahaira, one who lives in the Dominican Republic and the other who lives in, I think, New York, maybe Chicago. They don't know their sisters, and their father dies in a plane crash. The stories follows them eventually meeting and like what happens when they do, like how they're gonna go about the funeral and dealing with trauma and just like how we grieve and move on. I found myself really stuck in the story, and I really liked reading it. I don't know why I'm getting a little emotional right now. I think because, it was a good book. Maybe it's because I'm about to talk about number 11, which is History Is All You Left Me. And this book is like a really sad book. If you're not in the mood to be sad, like I said in my June video, like don't read this book. Like, it was very good, but also very sad. Griffin's boyfriend Theo was like died, and the book is split kind of like I'll Give You the Sun into the history part and current. There's a lot of romantic twist that I didn't see coming. It hit me in the feels, like there's some really sad parts, and I was just like, oh my god. I was just like, oh. Adam Silvera wrote this, and he's also the one who wrote They Both Die at the End, which is on my TBR, and if this is even sadder, I'm in trouble, but maybe I will find out. Number 9 is An Enchantment of Ravens. It is a enemies to lovers situation. This book, unlike A Court of Mist and Fury, actually had enough romance to keep the plot going. Shots fired! I read it before A Court of Mist and Fury, and as I was reading the Moss book, I was like, this reminds me of An Enchantment of Ravens. Like, they don't have the same plot. They both have fae and like seasonal courts and like fairy kings. Like, they're a bit comparables, and especially if A Court of Mist and Fury or like that whole series is a little too new adult for you, I'd say Enchantment of Ravens is like a good option. Oh, I didn't even tell you what it's about. It's about this girl, Isabel, who is a court painter for the fairies, and she accidentally paints the Autumn Prince's flaw in his glamour too well, and she is like taken away into the Autumn Court to answer for her crimes. Really good, really entertaining. Would recommend. And number 8 is We're Okay by Nita LaCour. I read this because John Green recommended it. It's a book about isolation. Our main character, Marin, is stuck in New York for winter break after her first semester of college, and it's her reflecting on her past, like the death of her grandfather and the secrets that he left, how things ended with her childhood best friend Mabel, romantic feelings there, and that is also resurfaced in the book. The ending feels like hope. Like, there's not much plot. It's a very introspective read, and I found it quietly hopeful at the end. So that's why I would recommend it. Number 7 is Summer of Salt. I had to answer a phone call, but we're back. Yes, Summer of Salt. So this book is definitely, like, I don't know how to classify it. It's kind of a romance, but also kind of fantasy. It definitely focuses more on, this book follows our main character Georgina and her sister Mary, and they are witches, like a taboo word, but Georgina doesn't have any powers and Mary can float. They live on an island called By the Sea, and I really hope that's right, and I didn't just pull that from somewhere. And there's like magical phenomena that happen, and they also like live in an inn, like they live in the attic of an inn. A bunch of bird watchers, or like bird heads as they're called in the book, come and visit the inn to see this bird called Annabella. The main conflict of this book is Annabella's late. It escalates from there, and like, I thought this book was gonna be a romance, and it still kind of is, but it turns into a mystery, and you're like, what? And like, I'm not really a fan of mystery, but the magical like element of it really kept me invested. I would recommend this. It is about coming into your own, like finding your own power, even if that's not through literal powers, although I think you should read this book to find out if Georgina gets a power before her 18th birthday. That's all I'm saying. You should read it. Next, in the oh my god read this category, we have books that are just next level. But if someone were to ask me about them, my immediate reaction would be like, yes, read it. Read it. It's even stronger than my would recommend category. You can tell by the 2 exclamation points. And there are 4 books in this category, and coming at number 6 for this year so far is The Ivies by Alexa Dunn, and it is the only thriller I read this year, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. Like, maybe I do like thrillers, or maybe Alexa Dunn can write a really good book. This book misdirected me so well. Like, I thought I knew who'd done it. I see right through this plot. I know exactly who did it, but then I was so wrong, and I continued to be wrong for like my next 3 guesses. And Alexa Dunn has done such a good job at crafting this plot, and it was just really good. Alexa Dunn is an author tuber here on YouTube, and you should read this book. I will link her channel in the description with all the other links I have mentioned so far, and you should definitely check it out. Number 5 is What If It's Us. It's cute and complicated. Arthur is a guy who likes musicals, and he is working as an intern for his mother's law firm, I think. So he's in New York for one summer and he meets this guy called Ben in a post office, and the next part of the book revolves around how is Arthur going to find Ben again, and Ben has like a thing with his ex-boyfriend, and like they go to summer school together, and like it's really, and by a thing I don't mean romantic thing, I just mean history. Like their romance feels natural, and like I really like that about it. What If It's Us is also co-written by Adam Silvera and Becky Abertale, two authors that I realize I really like a lot right now. I would recommend this, but I'm also like, oh my god, read it. Number 5 is Lucky Girl by Jamie Pacton. I have it physically, and this book I wanted to give away, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. It's about this girl Jane who wins the lottery as a minor, and the plot is about like how she's gonna cash this ticket if she even wants to. It's for $58 million. Who she can trust, if she even can trust anybody. It's very entertaining. Like I really would recommend it. It's from this publisher called Page Street YA. Moving on. Number 4 is Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman. It's a deep dive, pun intended, into mental illness. Our character, he has a mental illness, but it's not specifically named in the book. It's about his like estranged view of his life. Like he thinks like some students like trying to kill him. Eventually he ends up in a psych ward for like, he has like a psychotic break that I don't remember. But like that's not the appeal of this book. The appeal is not the psych ward crazy. The appeal is the other half of the book, which takes place on a pirate ship. This book is in this category, but only if you read the audiobook. If you read the normal book, it would be in one category below. I'm begging you, please read the audiobook for this. There are pirate voices, parrot voices, an echoey like monster voice. Like it's really well done, all by the same guy, I'm pretty sure, and it's very impressive. Things that happen on the pirate ship correlate with things that are happening in the real world. Like it's a very good read. But that's the end of this category. Oh my god, read this. And now we are moving into, no, seriously, read this. I am dead serious about this. These are my top 3 books so far of this year, and I can't recommend them enough. They're books I'm definitely gonna read again. They're books I would take with me to somewhere if I didn't have any internet. Books I would take with me like in a move. 2 of these I have physically. And number 3, if you've been here since the beginning with me, some of my very first videos were reading this book. It is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. The beginning is really gripping. I love every place that Addie visits. I was really absorbed in it, and I would absolutely beg you to read this if you haven't read it already. It's been 36 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Am I obsessed with Victoria Schwab? A little bit. I loved Henry and Addie's journey together. I liked Luke. Like it was a new type of devil that I hadn't like read before, and I found it really interesting, V.E. Schwab's portrayal of like the gods. I feel like it's pagan, although I haven't looked that up. This book, you should read it. My mom's reading the audiobook right now, and I'm a little jealous. Also, I want the German version so bad, but am I willing to pay $35 for it? Maybe not. Number 2, I sadly do not own, although I would like to own. It is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This book stands up to Harry Potter. It's about magical orphans who live in an orphanage under a caretaker, Arthur Pendragon, and our main character, I hope his name is Linus, because that's the name that's coming to me, but he is sent to investigate this orphanage for a really dull like management government company. He goes to this island with the orphanage, and he meets like these 6 magical children, or maybe there's 5. Doesn't matter. The audiobook is great. That's how I listened to it. It is also another good example of like stunning narration and a lot of talent in the voice actor doing many disparate voices. I think my favorite one was definitely a California surfer dude who worked in a record shop. If I had to pick a main character, it would be Talia, the Garden Gnome's voice. It does well in earning its ending. It is an appropriate ending for what it is. This book also walks the line between fantasy and romance, but I put it in fantasy because it was mainly about magic and magical people, and like speaks well about prejudice using this allegory, you should read if you have not already. And that brings me to number 1 in the no seriously read this category. The video I made about this book is my most viewed video to date. It's the Anthropocene reviewed by John Green. If the cover doesn't sell you, maybe the inside will. In the Anthropocene, there are no disinterested observers. There are only participants. It's a memoir-style book of essays of things that John Green has had to encounter in the human condition. Everything from Halley's Comet to Googling strangers to Monopoly and Mario Kart. It's really got a little bit of everything. It's got some serious notes, some happy ones, joyful ones, notes of wonder. It fills me with so many good feelings. It's very digestible in that it has so many good essays, and I've used little post-it notes to match the cover, and I don't know, it makes me happy. And I think you should read it. This is the only book I bought this year, and I certainly don't regret it, although of all of these books around me, these are the only 2 books I've actually bought with my own adult money, and maybe that correlates to me liking them a lot. I might be biased, but do I care? No. So anyway, that is the end of this hopefully not too long video where I rank the 30 books I read this year. I don't have a number goal of books to finish by the end of the year. I'll probably read around 60. Please let me know what you're reading in the comments below. Again, this video was inspired by the book Leo on BookTube. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you disagree with any of my picks. I know the Night Circus and that Sarah J. Maas book might have been hot takes for me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Grayson, and here on this channel I make all kinds of writing and bookish content. I post videos on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with room for bonus videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
No, Siri. And let's get into that. Take a pause, John.